Welcome. I'm Doug Seserman, and it's hashtag Webinar Wednesday. Welcome to our 61st webinar. This one on shared society in Israel, especially in the aftermath of October 7th. We're being joined by Professor Sarab Abu-Rabia Queder, who is our Vice President of Diversity and Inclusion. I just want to start today with the recent announcement about the ceasefire and pray for the safe return of the hostages and an end to the fighting so that we can move on from the tragic situation we've been in for now over 15 months since October 7th of 2023. I see Sarab has joined us. Also, I just want to note that even those statistics we showed were not accurate. The BGU community was directly and disproportionately impacted, as many of you are aware, because of our proximity to Gaza. The slide showed that we had 116 dead in our community, which is a huge number, about 10% of the deaths. We're now at 118, unfortunately. I just want to recall the memory of Staff Sergeant Yuval Shoham, who lost his life recently in Gaza, whose father is a faculty member at BGU, Professor Effie Shoham of our Department of Jewish History. May his memory be for a blessing. Just real quickly, in terms of instructions, if you have questions throughout the webinar, just click on your Q&A function, and we'll do our best to get those questions to Sarab during her presentation or afterwards. This webinar is called for approximately 40 minutes. I also want to thank the staff who worked so hard behind the scenes, Cheryl Corlitz, Lenore Levine, and Tally Goldscheft, who all prepared the marketing materials and worked with Sarab for what I think you'll find is a really compelling program today. All right, Sarab, let's start with you. So we're really happy to be introducing Sarab to our community via the webinar. She is quite accomplished. Professor Abu-Rabia Queder is the first Bedouin woman in Israel to have earned a PhD. She received all her undergraduate and graduate work, did all that work at Ben-Gurion University of the Negev, where she's now employed. And she did her postdoctoral fellowships in gender studies at the Hebrew University in Jerusalem and also the University of Oxford in England. Not bad, Sarab. And recently, she was given an honorary doctorate from the Weizmann for her incredible career, which is a wonderful honor and very well deserved. Sarab is a sociologist of education and a feminist activist who specializes in gender studies. Her research at BGU focuses on issues of diversity and inequality among minorities in academia and employment, and she's published 3 books on the subject. In June of 2021, she was appointed by BGU President Professor Daniel Shamovitz as the Vice President of Diversity and Inclusion at BGU to ensure equal representation of minority groups, both among the students as well as the faculty and administration, so that they could include Arabs, women, those with disabilities, Ethiopian immigrants, the Haredim, first-generation university students, and the LGBTQ plus community. Welcome, Sarab.
Thank you so much, Doug, and thank you for you, the audience, for attending this evening. This is really exciting. I will start my presentation.
Perfect.
You all could see it. Okay, so October 7th, unfortunately, just surprised us all in the university, but especially both groups that my office is responsible. One of the things that we do is in the Office of Diversity and Inclusion is working, like Doug presented, on increasing the representation of different minority groups, the disadvantaged minority groups in the academia, and opening the path for them. However, in this this evening, I will focus on the latest year, which was a very challenging year, and present the the role of Diversity and Inclusion Office following the October 7th war. So at first, when at October, unfortunately, when the disaster started, the first thing we noticed is that there was a lot of fear of Arab and Jewish students from coming back, returning to campuses. The fear actually, the fear and the feeling of alienation of what could happen inside the campus from this encounter is something that was not a surprise for us, because it goes back also to different operations and different conflict events that we experienced back then at May 2021 and at May 2022. So we have learned, we have an experience and learned from previous conflicts or wars. Of course, it's not the same extent of these events, that there is alienation, and different surveys from that has been conducted all over the universities told us that fear and alienation of both groups from each other are increasing. So what we did is that we prepared the students, and we start to prepare also the staff to come back to an inclusive and, first of all, a safe campus. The first thing we did is we created, as you could see here, a safe space for both Arab and Jewish students, where each group could meet with its own in-group, with a moderator or a facilitator that speaks its own language, and speak about their feelings, expressing their fears, and ensuring that they can come back, return to campus, and feel safe. We also had workshop for all the academic staff about principles of teaching in a diverse classroom. We were very, very, we had to took some earlier steps in order to also give our staff, especially the academic staff, tools in how to treat, this conflict if it penetrates into classes, especially in in humanities and social sciences. We also, because we know that, and we have experienced that in time of conflicts, there are also tension between the groups, sometimes hatred speech, sometimes some racist comments, microaggressions. So in order to avoid that, we published rules of expression and guidelines for respectful and constructive discourse in campus, in class, everywhere in campus, just to keep the campus a safe space for everyone. We also established in May 2021, following the events of May 2021, anti-racism committee or anti-discrimination committee, a committee that actually aimed to, first of all, deal with complaints of hatred speech, of discrimination and racism on campus. And this was an address for students from all minority groups, and leadership groups for minority students in order to express their identity conflict, again, to create their safe spaces and give them new tools for leadership as active students on campus. So these were, I can say that, the steps that we took ahead before coming back to campus. And when we came back to campus, I would like to share with you the survey that we conducted in last May. And the survey aims to examine the attitudes of both Jewish and Arab students at Ben-Gurion University since October 7. This was the topic and the title of the survey that was distributed among the students.
Sarab, could
yes.
you give a little context to the demographics of BGU? Around 20,000 students, I believe around 10%.
Yes, we have almost 18,000 students. 2,000 are Arabs, 130 Ethiopian Jews, and we have a minority of almost 70 students, Haredim, ultra-Orthodox students. So these are the statistics, but again, when we have a conflict, even if the numbers are small, and of course the distribution of the Arab students are from the north, the center, and the south, as well as Jewish students, conflict penetrate also into the campuses. We are aware to that. We experienced that in the past. So it's important. Each year, by the way, we conducted surveys on campus among the students in order to sense their feeling. And we focused this year on examining, first of all, their belonging, their feeling of belonging to campus. This is a very important element because belonging, actually, it's something that predicts also their success in their studies, but also feeling part of the university and taking the war into consideration and taking the tension between Arab and Jewish populations. I mean, not necessarily the students, but also the environment, the atmosphere in the country. In those months, or also nowadays, belonging is something that is an element that's important to examine. The other element is the satisfaction of the feeling of satisfaction of students from the services and messages, especially the communication and letters received from the administration of the university regarding the war, and feeling of safety or protection, the assurance of being free from harm or danger, something that was very obvious during the first months of the war. And last, the motivation of both Arab and Jewish students to cooperate, to learn, and to study, or to just have an active activities with the other groups. So I will share with you briefly, really briefly, because of lack of time, some of the, to highlight some of the main findings of the survey. In terms of characteristics, we had 1,163 the number of the full sample size, mostly, of course, Jewish society. We can see here 1,063 Jewish students and 163 Arab students, mostly women represented in both groups, which is actually they're similar to the representation in the university, and mostly were BA students, mean undergrad students. In terms of sample characteristics, you can see also that we emphasize the representation of the faculties, that the sample actually had a representation of each faculty, and we measured the representation of each section of the society in the university and also in the sample. So you can see here that the most represented faculty among both groups is the humanities and social sciences. The second one actually is engineering faculty, and then you can see the health faculty, natural science and management, similar in both groups. In terms of level of religiosity, we can see here, okay, first of all, in terms of residence, among the Arab society, almost, we can say that 50-50 or almost 50-50 are from the south and from the north of Israel. And in terms of level of religiosity, we didn't ask questions, according to the terms that are asked usually in the Jewish society, because we have different kinds, Arab population have different kinds of religious commitments. So we divided it according to the religious commitment, and you can see here that most of the respondents were actually between traditional to very religious. While in the Jewish population, the Jewish students, most of them were secular. 70% were secular students. So this is really interesting, this contrast regarding the division of the population. And in terms of political views, which is also interesting, we can see here among the Arab students, first of all, 30% did not respond. They did not respond in the survey, what is their political views. The team of the survey, we assume that maybe it is because they feel that they were maybe unprotected or unsafe to declare their political views. 70% do not vote at all, do not vote, so they're not related to any party. And we can see here also that 11% Balad, which is Balad, Ra'am, and Hamishutefet, we can say that it's left and left, mostly, of course, left. Among the Jewish students, we can see that only 18% are related to the center. Almost 49%, almost 60% are center right or right wing, and 30% center and left wing together. So we can say that most of the sample is actually from the center to the right. And now the summary of the findings according to the four themes, the four elements that were examined. First of all, in terms of feeling of belonging and safety, we saw that Jewish students feel a stronger sense of belonging than Arab students, but their sense of pride is similar. Arab students feel less comfortable being themselves and expressing their opinions and feel less respected. Physical security or protection is rated as medium among both groups, but it is lower among the Arab student. University, in terms of university messaging and responses, few respondents believe that the university's messages and responses were sufficient and adequately addressed to their needs of both groups. But Jewish students felt that the messages were more tailored to them compared to Arab students. And Arab students felt that they knew better where to turn for support, especially economic support, compared to Jewish students. So we assume here that the lack of knowing where to return is referred to Jewish students who served in the army during this time, because it was like a new phenomenon, a new thing to handle in the university. That's why maybe they felt that they don't know where to address. In terms of emotional perception, Arab students feel more positive than negative emotions toward Jewish students, but many are hesitant to discuss war-related topics. Jewish students feel more negative than positive emotions toward Arab students, with the dominant feeling being distance. And I will present the slides a division of this topic. In terms of motivation for collaborative learning, motivation for joint learning is medium among both groups, but significantly lower among Jewish students. Arab students are more interested in collaborating with Jewish students on academic projects and social activities. Changes in motivation since October 7. The majority of Jewish students are less interested in learning together, while Arab students' motivation remain unchanged. So this is really interesting.
Sarab, at a classroom level, aren't the courses integrated, or is there segregation between Jews and Arabs?
The courses, Arab and Jewish students, they study together in the courses, and I will relate to this topic. We also usually when they're in class, they sit apart. I don't like to use the word segregated, but they sit apart in their own in-groups. But we are for a year working. We have been working with academic lecturers on inclusive pedagogy, to give them tools on how to create non-segregated and more integrative co-groups learning environment. I will move now to the emotions, the negative and what are the negative and the positive relation. So you can see here, if we look at the negative emotions among Jewish and Arab students, compared to the positive emotions among Arab, Jewish and students. So we can see here that the Jewish students report more negative emotion, and the dominant emotion is the sense of distance. Okay, the sense of distance is the dominant emotion. while the dominant emotion among, or the feeling among the Arab students is fear of discussing issues related to the war. And I think it relates to not knowing what it also impacted and affected by the political atmosphere in those times in the country, where actually, the Arab citizens of Israel were hunted by the politicians and so everything that you say or you don't say, it will be, you don't know how it will be perceived among the other. And I assume that the sense of distance here increased because of the, especially in the within the campus, is because the lack of encounter during this time, and what you don't know what the other part actually, the other what the other feel toward you. In terms of the positive feeling, we can see that Arab students feel much more empathy and understanding and trust toward the Jewish students than the opposite. And it's also interesting and surprising, and we will also we can discuss this as well. If you can see here, the overestimate and underestimate the emotions or the feeling. You can see here among the perceptions of Jewish students, okay, we have here two elements. First of all, what Jewish students believe Arab students experience here in the white columns, and in the black columns, you can see what Arab students actually experience. So we can see here that Jewish students underestimate the fears and the emotional distress of Arab students, okay, in terms of emotional distress, concern for the safety of family members, concern for physical safety, fear of losing one's home, but overestimate the fear of losing the job. However, if we look at the perception of the Arab students, okay, you can see here what Arab students believe Jewish students experience, okay, and what in the black column, you can see what Jewish students actually experience, okay? So Arab students overestimate the fear and emotional distress of Jewish students in terms of their concern for the safety of the family, concern for physical safety, fear of losing one's home and one's job, okay? This is really interesting, and it's data that we can work with. So in both groups, the belief in the possibility of coexistence and the acknowledgement of the other side's suffering are stronger than the perception that coexistence is impossible and that the other side is incapable of change. At least we have some hope. We can see here that despite the low rates of the answers of the data in terms of believing in coexistence, but we can see here that in the feeling that I believe that the other group has experienced upheaval, or I believe that the relation can improve, is at least higher in numbers compared to I see no chance for shared coexistence. So what we do with this data? First of all,
that was really positive data you just shared.
Yes, so at least some hope.
Yeah. Given the situation, it's actually,
yes, and we have we have things to work with. I mean, this is what we're heading. We have to look at reality and see, what we have in terms of a situation, in terms of relations on campus, and how to where we're taking that. So first of all, our recommendation is encouraging inclusive communication and messages from administration and deans. And fortunately, at the moment I presented the findings to the president, Dani Khaimovich, he actually initiated a strategic plan to encourage inclusive communication on campus that take into consideration both sides, that deliver messages of togetherness, messages of empathy for both sides. The second recommendation, strengthening feeling of empathy, tolerance, and understanding between the groups, acknowledging the needs and pain of all groups. It's something that this is very important, where we create actually the closeness through the shared life program. and sending strong messages to students and faculty that they are wanted and valued regardless of their background. These signals are essential in creating a campus climate where all students feel safe and supported. But we're not there yet, and this is something that we should and we will work on. So we would like to build a supportive and inclusive campus environment through valued messages, acknowledgement of needs and safety, empathy, and tolerance. So how we're doing that through the last year? First of all, I have to say that immediately upon our return to the campus on January 2024, the philanthropy helped us in initiating immediately the Shared Life program. We call it the Shared Life Lab. And we started with those initiatives that strongly become an address also for students' initiatives. They addressed us. They wanted to do some things that I will present. First of all, we initiated a program called Hebrew for Success program, where actually Jewish students, only Hebrew-speaking students, go through a kind of a workshop. They are learning skills on how to teach Hebrew as a second language, and they travel to Hura. Hura is a Bedouin town, to a Bedouin high school, and they actually teach, talk with, practice Hebrew with Bedouin school children. And at the end of the year, look here at the, you can see the logo of our University of BGU. This is a radio station at the Bedouin school that was initiated throughout this program in this school by our radio BGU. So this is, I think this is an achievement. And the aim of the radio is, again, to strengthen the language skills. Now they use it in Arabic, hopefully that they can also deliver messages also in Hebrew. The other community or ways to promote feeling of to bring Arab and Jewish students together, to increase their feeling of belonging, to increase their feeling of safety and the feeling that they can actually express their self, their emotions, their dialogue, their narratives in a safe environment is by creating or establishing these communities. We call them communities for shared spaces. And I have only here, a taste from our communities. The thing that is common, we can see here 3 communities. The first is the ambassadors for Shared Life program. This is now we have the second cohort. Last year we initiated, established the first cohort where we had a call for participation, and I think we had over 60 people, 60 students interested, but eventually we have to we have to choose only 20 students to make the process and the dynamic of the group working. We need to focus on a certain number. So we had 50-50 Arab and Jewish students, where the aim of these ambassadors is to, first of all, break the ice between the students, to increase the feeling of belonging and empathy, to create a safe space, and express and share their stories in a non-judgmental way, and to increase the encounter between them. Those ambassadors are selected from each faculty. So we have representatives for each faculty, which they receive, the theoretical background, they receive skills and tools on the meaning of what is a shared space, what is a shared academic space, what is our responsibility of this space. And eventually they have to do an initiative. They have to promote an initiative in their own faculty and create an impact. The aim here, we have a short-term goals and long-term goals. The short-term goals is the group, but the long-term goals is the faculty, and creating a network in the university that actually foster a counter narrative to the to the hatred speech and to the anti-democratic, let's say, environment. We have a poetry writing community, which is an initiative that started from a student who approached us. So we helped him to create a poetry a community that actually they have several meetings where they write a poet, write poetry, each one in his or her own language, and it is translated to different language. Arabic is translated to Hebrew and vice versa. And in the process of translation, they are actually connected and talk about and discuss about the meaning of what they wrote. And the last community is the Sabaya. Sabaya is the Arabic word for young women. And we have a Sabaya committee, which is a community which is actually Arab Jewish female students that also was initiated by two Arab and Jewish students that aims to talk about gender relations, about feminism, about women, Arab and Jewish women, and also about women and politics in Israel. So these are our communities, which in the long term, I can say that if I might summarize, given the the anti-democratic atmosphere and the incitements against minorities, we do not. I believe that we do not have the privilege just not doing anything, and we have to embrace and use and the campus as an arena where, for the first time, Arab and Jewish population actually encounter on a daily basis to increase the amount of encounters between them, and so they could know each other in a very in a human contact. Okay, the human contact here is very important. So I know that we're running out of time. I would just end with a thanks, a big thank you for our supporters, the Blaustein Foundation, the Social Venture Fund, the Edmond de Rothschild, and the UJA that were supporting us through this whole process of bringing this population together. And in the Q&A questions, I hope that I could also share some of the qualitative findings from the participants. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much, Sarab. That was really good information, some a little difficult to take, right? Negative news, but also a lot of, I think, positive news and hope for the future. So really great platform to build from. We've got a lot of questions and the audience is held on. So I want to get to some of these questions. One is coming at sort of the parallels or lack thereof between the situation in Israel and what you see on US college campuses. So the question is, how do you work with maybe your colleagues at US universities who have a similar role in terms of VP for diversity, equity, and inclusion? Do you work with them in a collaborative way? And how is the situation in Israel different than what you see in the States?
Well, first of all, I think that this is a really good question. Well, I know now that, in the States, some of the universities just closing, just the DEI offices. It's like nothing, there is nothing to work on. And I think that, it doesn't matter if it is in Israel or in the States, but, hunting a person just because of his or her origin is something wrong. And I think campuses life are a zone, our arena for practicing citizenship, for practicing active citizenship, for expressing perception, ideas, sometimes controversial. And we also experience this here. And in Israel, it is also difficult because now we're experiencing, some, maybe I can say invisible threats, unspoken, let's say, anti-democratic atmosphere, from the government, from the very radical ministries that we have, that their goal is just, to hunt or to maybe prevent the freedom of speech. Some people, both Arab and Jewish, that, those groups that are against the war, that they want the war to stop, or express empathy with the Palestinians in Gaza and what happened in Gaza, what happened in the children in Gaza, it's something that feel like it is forbidden. So we feel also, as being part of the Arab citizen in Israel, that the democratic protections are not there anymore. If some time ago, if once a time, if few years ago, people could just demonstrate and express their views in a very liberal, democratic manner, and even in the universities, okay, the academia could protect them. Nowadays, with this radical government, there is no protection. So even, okay, so this is the situation. Now we have some visits from different kind of VPs and professors from different universities in the state, and we share the experience. Not a lot, I have to admit, not a lot, because I'm pretty occupied with the conflicts in our universities. It's a lot to handle. But from the last visit, the last visit we had only yesterday, they met two students, two ambassadors, one Arab student and a Jewish student from our program. And we came to conclusion that the radical people, that those who are against everything and create dichotomies, between the two sides, are not the ones who experienced the conflict. Okay, this is the difference here. And I think what the important is that we bring people here in BGU, both Arab and Jewish students, who experienced the conflict. They're not out there talking about it, okay? They are here living it, okay? Living it. And some of them have families, okay? Either in Gaza or either in the West, or either in the surrounding Gaza, in the Israeli side, okay? So, and this is exactly the challenge here, to bring those conflict narratives, or both narrative, into one place and one space to discuss it, to discuss these tough things that maybe they're not, it's not something that they hear or learned or were educated, but this is this is the real life here.
Yeah. We're getting a question from Michael Ozer, one of our board members. He's asking, how difficult is it to create social programming that involves both the Arabs and the Jewish students?
Well, actually, it was not very hard, I have to say, because once we created it, a lot, like I said, these are what I presented is only a taste from what we have, and we become an address for students who want to create these initiatives, who want to create shared spaces. So they come with a theme, and we help them to coordinate it. We help them also with some budget, and again, eventually we would like to create a huge network of students that communicate with each other and create a counter narrative, to the radical ones of neither side.
We're getting another question from another board member, Ernie Simon. He's asking about living accommodations. So I know some of the Bedouin students still live at home, but do we have separate accommodations, dorms or apartments for the Haredim or the religious women? Do the Arab students tend to live on campus?
Yes, actually most of the dorms, some of the dorms are the residents of the dorms are Arab students. Some of the, not most of the Bedouin students live on campus, but most of them live in their homes because it's easier for them. Regarding the Haredim or religious women, they're also, since they're very small minority, most of them do not live on campus, and most of them are represented, the small number that I mentioned, in master and PhDs degrees. So they don't have to live on campus.
Mark Hager is asking how you think these survey results might differ at the other Israeli universities.
Actually, they match the other results in a survey that conducted by A4BGU. It's a national survey that conducted by A4BGU Center nationally, throughout all the academia, I mean throughout all universities and colleges. And the findings are, not surprisingly, are very, very similar. They're oriented. I mean, in terms of orientation and in terms of the gaps between the students, between the perceptions of both Arab and Jewish students, it is similar. So it gives also a reliability to our findings. And I think the next step is how we continue from here. And again, I'm not surprised because, you know, as a scholar who study minorities, and right now, current days, I also write about conflicts and minority in conflict zones. It is not surprising that in times of conflict, there is a distance and the fear between the groups. But again, the issue here is how to try to create a better future for these groups and not to keep the situation as it is.
Okay, we're going to try to wrap up. Got two more questions, then we'll do that. One question from an anonymous attendee is asking, from a dating standpoint, do the Jewish and Arab students date each other, or tend to date people similar to themselves and their background?
Well, since I am a researcher, I cannot answer this question without doing a survey. So maybe next time you can ask, and maybe I will have an answer, an exact answer for that question.
Okay, fair enough. On the optimistic side, Mayan Schneider, who's one of our employees, she's asking, is there a specific example or story in all of these collaborative projects that you outlined that maybe gives a lot of hope for the future?
Yes, thank you for the question. Okay, where to start from? Actually, I prepared a few stories, few examples that I heard from the students. First of all, I would present to one of an Arab student perception and the other one from a Jewish student perception. Yesterday, when we met these two students, Daniel and Hadil, Daniel, who said that during the war, he was in the army. He was recruited to the army, and he actually participated in our ambassador program. And he said that he didn't, throughout the participation, after this program, he was, before he participated, he was not aware that also Arab students were hurt and injured from this war. He was not aware, to the feeling of distress that Arab students feel. And also he was not aware that they have also families in Gaza that they were worried about. An Arab student said that she felt very excited to share her. We have a slot in the program that is called the ambassador window. And in this ambassador window, each meeting, one student present his or her personal story. He could pick the title and just present it. And one Bedouin student who come from unrecognized village presented for the first time in Hebrew her life story, coming from unrecognized village, and all the hardship and the situation that she experienced as a citizen and as a student. And she said that the comments and the empathy she received from her Jewish partners in the group got her very emotional, because she, again, never realized that anyone from the other group could actually express empathy and for her situation. And this is what we want. We want to create a human contact that is based on empathy, on solidarity, and on understanding each other.
Well, thank you for that answer. I think that's the perfect way to transition to the end of our program. So for the audience, thank you so much for joining us. We have some upcoming events called Resilience and Hope, BGU's role in the aftermath of October 7th, both in Florida as well as in Texas the last week in February. So if you're in one of those markets, please join us and learn from Professor Dorit Nitzan, who is also just simply outstanding. Also, if you check our website, you can see I've been drinking from this really cute mug with David Ben-Gurion's face on it. You can make a small gift to the organization if you'd like to support our work and receive a thank you gift. There will be several of them on the website soon, so please take a look at A4BGU.org. David Ben-Gurion, the founder and first prime minister and namesake of our university, once said that it is in the south, in the Negev desert, where the cradle of our people exists, both the Bedouins as well as the Jews in the south. And in that part of the country, it represents our weak points and danger zones. We have learned that and experienced it since October 7th. Yet at the same time, Ben-Gurion said that it is also there that represents our greatest opportunity, that the future of Israel would emerge from the Negev. And that, at the end of the day, is the work we do at Ben-Gurion University of the Negev in our education and research and work to enhance and build the Negev region. So thank you so much, Sarab, for your leadership and for sharing the survey results with us today. Again, let's pray for a safe return of the hostages and a resolution to this conflict. Thank you all for joining us. Be safe. Take care.